Well, hello. How are you guys? I can't hear you. How are you guys? Okay. I feel a bit like Beyonce with this mic on, so I think I'm gonna be a bit like Beyonce and ask you guys for a big round of applause for the Tilium team for organizing this event. Oh, okay. Well, I do not work for Tilium. And the reason I'm actually here is because I led the CDP deployment at SNCF Connect and Tech. Just a quick words about me. I forgot the thing. Oop. A quick words about me. Um, I was a big fan of math, so I ended up in data. And I was actually really good with people and diplomacy, so I ended up in marketing. And that's how I ended up in data marketing. And also, I ended up at SNCF Connect and Tech because I'm a big fan of trains. And like everyone who works at SNCF Connect, we're all big fans of sustainable mobility. So, just quick words about SNCF Connect, because in France, everyone knows this company. But I think in the UK and in other European countries, you might not be aware of what it is. So, what are we? We are the all-in-one platform for sustainable mobility. So we can deliver for customers end-to-end journeys from one point to another. We specialize in trains, of course, but we also have um, taxi services, rental cars, and you are also able to book hotels. We have around 16 million users per year, which is a big number for France. Um, and yeah, so do not hesitate to download this app. And about SNCF Connect and Tech, it's a leader and a pioneer for e-commerce and mobility in France. Um, we just give you big numbers, but we sold 233 tickets in 2025. There are approximately 4 million visits per day on the app and on the websites. And we have around 60 urban transport within our app, additional to train. Oh, yeah, sorry. So, as I told you a bit earlier, everyone is a big fan of the company, is a big fan of trains in general. Everyone works in the company. I am a big fan. We all have the same goal in the company, which is sustainable mobility. So, in a way, we all go into the same direction. But in reality, we don't really have that much the same goals. And we think we are going into the same direction, but actually we are not that much. Everyone in the company is expert in their own domain. So it means everyone thinks that its domain is the best one and will contribute the most to sustainable mobility. I think some of you guys might have seen that. So SNCF Connect is an amazing company, but as a lot of companies, it's a company of silos. So when we decided to implement the CDP, the most challenging was not actually the data or the data architecture, it was more the people. So the project was more a people project than actually a data project. So how do we do when we have people who want to go in the same direction, who actually think they want a CDP, but they want to prioritize their own use cases before all of the others? How do you do that? You rationalize. So the first step was drawing the map of needs. What do you really need, and for which reason do you really need it? So before the journey of deploying the CDP began, we actually classified each of the use cases and interviewed everyone to make sure that we were sure of what everyone needed. So we classified each of the use cases into category, what do they really need, then the status of the use case at SNCF Connect. Is it something that's already deployed that we will switch to the CDP? Or is it something that we are mature for? Is it something that we want to abandon? Or is it something that we really want to plan and it's prioritized? And then the team expressing the needs. So we worked with the marketing team, the product team, the data teams, the sales team, and also the tech teams. And then what would be the contribution of the CDP for the use cases. So this was the first step of classification and rationalization. And then the second step, how to prioritize, because everyone thinks that their own use case is actually the best one and the most important one for the company. Um, so we ask ourselves the question of the value for the company. How do we measure value? There is a bit more than only ROI, actually. At SNCF Connect, we value a lot customer experience. So for us, it was really important the use cases that would have a strong value for customer experience. So this was actually the criteria that made sense for SNCF Connect, but for each company, for other criteria could make sense. And then based on that, business value and technical complexity, we draw the map of needs, which makes sense for SNCF Connect once again. So the needs are based on, for instance, here we have a use cases with really, really high business value and is actually really not that tough to deploy is actually, for instance, retargeting or excluding customers from our media campaigns. It's high value use case. It makes sense. It saves us a lot of money in marketing. And also the customer experience is better. And other use cases that make sense but are really tough to deploy is, for instance, real-time retargeting on emails. It's tough. Well, with our stack, it's tough. And so once we classified all the use cases, now we wanted to validate the contribution of each. We discussed with the teams to prioritize each use case for them. So, for instance, the display team, they told us that they wanted 15 use cases. Well, we will not prioritize all of them, of course. So we decided to put them all in a room together and just make them prioritize the use cases by listening also to the use cases of others. So this was the team. This was the first use cases. And then afterwards, we prioritized some use cases. So that's what we started. And now the journey begins. So we have our use cases, we have our classification, we know what our priorities are. Everything could go perfectly right, right? Well, it went quite well, but it was tough. So, how did we do that? Okay, I'm going to put that again because it's really fun. Okay. So, the project was a huge project internally. The project lasted approximately for 16 months. We deployed 30 use cases, which actually was 350 audiences. In the first 6 weeks, we deployed around between 150 and 200 audiences. By the way, two keynotes before, someone talked about building audiences with AI. It would have been really helpful for the beginning of that project. And so all of that managing with 10 billion events in 2025. So it was a long project for us, and now we are currently deployed. So what made the success of the project was the fact that we were live really quickly in the first few weeks, and we gained value really quickly. So when you talk about with the people, when you say to them, okay, I'm going to deploy a project, it's going to be really nice, you'll see the impact for you. We decide to deploy projects for each of the teams really fast with really high value. We did all the quick wins first so that they would leave us alone to build the use cases with way more technical complexities. It was a success. And then we ran through a lot of different challenges along the way. We had specific architecture needs. We had really issues with matching rates. We Um, and we also had a really strong delivery rhythm with the Tilium teams. So it was a really challenging project. And now, I think the key takeaways of this project deployment, the first is be agile. For instance, this was the use cases we wanted to implement at first, and this was the use cases we actually implemented. So as you can see from maybe behind, it might be a bit blurry, but what you need to take away is that when we planned the projects, we had a lot of great ideas. And when we actually built the project, it was a few months after. So we had new business needs, we had new teams, we had also found value from different use cases than we expected. So for instance, we thought the email use cases would be really, really fast to deploy, but it actually was a high technical complexity. And so the main takeaway would be if you are agile and if the teams with you are agile, it will be a good thing. Otherwise, it might be tough. And so the key findings, more than agility, is that we actually found value from unexpected use cases. So what we expected was, of course, incremental from ads revenue, but it actually built way more value than we expected. So, for instance, we thought that data monetization would be use cases that would bring a bit of value, but not that much. But in reality, the use cases that bring the most value, because thanks to the audiences we built in Tilium, we're able to sell our ads 2 or 3 times the price of without audiences. So it brings really, really high value. And then we also bring value with, for instance, I told you about excluding customers. So we save money by excluding customer, and we tend to have higher lower, cost per acquisition. So this has a lot of value for us, and also, well, media savings. And then, so key takeaways for a successful data transformation journey. The first one, as I told you before, be agile. You need to stay flexible during the delivery. Um, we had really high expectation in plannings. We wanted to do everything at the same time, but we depend so much on other teams that at some point we decided to prioritize other use cases with the teams that were more flexible, and then deprioritize other use cases and then go back to them a few months later. So it was really challenging. Also, the I would say the key success of the project was that at first we aligned people all together. The presentation before me, they said that already, but it was a project of change management, people projects. It was not just a project of data and tech. Um, it was all about convincing people that it was okay for them to wait a few days or a few months or a few weeks for the use case to be developed, because other use cases with higher value for other teams might be developed first. And then um, the third takeaway is that once you kind of develop all of your use cases, you can see the value of some of them. So we began to make decision based on ROI, and on the value we brought by the use cases. So that's it. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to me.